Fellow members of the Jubilee Party, this morning millions of Kenyans braved the morning chill to cast their votes in the Jubilee Party primaries. It was a monumental task with high standards set, never before attempted in party primaries in the history of our nascent multi-party democracy. There have been challenges all over the country, and we have held consultations with the party leadership. In the interest of fairness and transparency, it has been decided to call off the primaries in the following counties in their entirety or partially because of anomalies that are not acceptable given the high standards we have set for this important exercise. The following counties have been postponed in the entire county: Narok, Kajiado, Kericho, Bomet, Uasin, Gishu, Nzoia, Baringo, Nakuru, Elgeyo, Marakwet, Embu, and Nandi. Voting in the following counties have been cancelled in limited number of constituencies and wards, and the respective constituency returning officers will be able to make the last call. These are Kiambu, Laikipia, Meru, and West Pokot. In the following counties, voting has continued and the party will closely monitor progress. These are Murang'a, Kirinyaga, Nyeri, and Nyandarua. Once again, we want to thank all the Jubilee Party members who turned up in such unbelievably large numbers because of their support for the party. The party officials and management have instructions to reschedule the exercise in all the affected areas and ensure that logistics are better managed and are in place before new dates are announced. May we once again thank the party members for exercising patience and decorum in the wake of the challenges faced today. The new dates will be officially announced as soon as possible after due consultation and is undertaken with the affected stakeholders. Once again, we also want to apologize to all our party members for all the inconveniences caused in those respective areas. Thank you very much. We can take some questions. Yes.
For the benefit of those who are trying to take notes, are you able just to repeat where it has been called off fully? Yes,
I can repeat. The areas where it's been called off completely is Narok, Kajiado, Kericho, Bomet, Uasin, Gishu, Nzoia, Baringo, Nakuru, Elgeyo, Marakwet, Embu, and Nandi. But we'll give you a copy of the press statement, so I'll just have it photocopied so you can have that.
Maybe just a follow-up on the same. I'm curious to know what criteria have you used to call off nominations? What sort of formula do you use to come to these decisions?
Yes. As in the meeting this morning, I did mention that we were looking at least a ratio of 50% in terms of amount of ballot papers that have been printed. There was a small mistake which we want to take full responsibility for, that when the ballot papers were delivered and packaged, we thought that in the interest of security we should not tear them open and count one by one. So we found out that in some of the areas, instead of having even the 50%, the lowest and the most unfortunate one was at about 18%. And when it is 18%, you don't want to attempt to go ahead. We've held several meetings in the last few hours. I'm sorry that I should have come back earlier to check where did the rain start beating us. Is it that some ballot papers were diverted, stolen, or any of that? And so far up to now, there's no evidence whatsoever that some ballot papers were diverted or stolen that can compromise the process. Therefore, we believe that because we did not physically count the over 16 million ballot papers that were printed, it is possible that when they were packaged by the printer and they probably may have printed less. And that's some of the realities that sometimes you have to deal with when you are engaged in such a big exercise. Thank you.
A number of aspirants who've spoken in different parts of the country have accused the headquarters of being behind an alleged ploy to sort of scuttle the process. Why would they point fingers at the headquarters? And basically, you as the Secretary General and also the National Elections Board, what is it that is happening?
As I talk with you now, there are people from Kajiado. They rounded up a lorry which was delivering the ballot papers and boxes. They were convinced that they should not have followed that route. They should have gone to the constituency, not constituency, but the county tallying center. But as I've explained earlier this morning, if you're going to Nakuru and there's a constituency in Naivasha and Gilgil, it is common sense that you should drop those ones before you go to Nakuru, because otherwise you'll be actually increasing the kilometers that are covered, and it just becomes a logistical problem. But I tell you what, a lot of the aspirants, the stakes are very high. And the moment they felt that the ballot papers are not enough, they felt automatically that maybe my opponent has them. Okay, and that's natural. So one of the reasons why we want to have a talk with our stakeholders before we even schedule new dates is to explain to them and to be able for them to see what process this whole thing is, how difficult it is to be able to infiltrate it, so that they just have a certain amount of level of comfort. And I can understand where aspirants are coming from. Nomination processes have been botched in the past, have been shambolic. People who visit violence on others have been the ones who win. But I really want to congratulate, for example, the people of Kiambu. They have been very, very patient. We have not had a single report of incidents of, people losing their temper and breaking things. The whole of Muranga is very, very quiet, and we are in constant contact with them, and we want to appeal to them that they proceed. But even after that, we'll monitor the integrity of the process, and if we feel that the integrity of the process is such that we have to repeat, we will repeat.
Could I just add also that one of the things that today morning demonstrated was the intensity of interest in these seats. I think even the press will bear us out. There were unbelievably large numbers turning out. Any prediction or use of precedent in this particular primary was completely belied by the turnout that we witnessed this morning. You all saw it, and one of the, shall I say, corrective measures that we certainly have to look at intensely as soon as we walk out of this room as the board and management of this process is we have to go for overkill. In terms of provisioning, we have to go for overkill. It's a lesson learned from today's processes. The candidates are rightfully, very justifiably upset with the logistics in some of the aspects of today's exercise. But one of the learnings that we can take, and perhaps it may become a blessing even for the exercises planned for next week, are that you do not underestimate the interest in the Jubilee Party ticket. And that's one of the things we are taking to the drawing board, and we must be candid about this even as we look you in the eye and we look Kenyans in the eye and say it is not something that you can sort of be humble about your predictions, as it were. Fortunately, as the Secretary General said, if you look at a place like Narok, despite the fact that they recognized the problem quite early, when we froze the process to take stock of the situation on the ground, we had very, very good cooperation from leaders who are involved in intense competition. But they all, much like the leaders in Nakuru, sat together and said, look, we've taken stock of this situation. And in Narok, they didn't even proceed to start, such that they said, let's take stock 2 steps back before we move forward. In the case of Nakuru, as you saw, they made a request to party headquarters to take stock, take a step back, and that's exactly what we've done, so that we can return. This is an exercise that must take place. It's not like we have a choice. This exercise must take place and will take place, and it is now upon us to go and do what we are required to do to get this exercise to take off, and we'll be getting back to you with the details of the process going forward.
Earlier on you mentioned about the register, and you say that you are using the IBC voter register just for double checking on your members. But then IBC issued a statement saying that they are advising parties to use their membership registers because they're in the process of voter verification. So what is your position there?
There's no contradiction. There's no contradiction in what I said. We are using our membership register. But we say that our membership register was not adequate in terms of defining up to the polling station where you should poll. So we need that for purposes of ensuring that is this your polling station, so that we don't have questions of voters being moved from one county to another or one ward to another or one constituency to another. So it's really for our confirmation purposes. But when somebody has an ID card, unless it is especially in towns and so forth, it's very, very easy to establish that in this village, this is the local polling station. And in such incidences, nobody's being turned away just for coming with their own, with the ID card. That's enough.
You promised a watertight nomination exercise, and many aspirants are accusing you of failing to do so and are calling for your resignation. How do you respond to that? And second question is, you say that there was 7.5 million ballot papers. Did you underestimate the number of turnout, because it's mentioned that there were massive crowds that turned out today?
Two things. The first is that we promised a watertight process, and that up to this moment, nobody has been caught with ballot papers which are fake. Up to this point, if anybody has been caught or found with ballot papers which are not the right ballot papers, if anybody has been caught with stuffing any ballot papers, I'd like to hear that. The system is still tight, even where we're going to repeat it. It is the party has these things serialized. They have security features, and I can still comfortably say it is impossible to rig unless your own polling agent is interested in colluding with all the other polling agents to rig you out. That I can still say. With respect to who takes responsibility, I take a certain amount of responsibility because this has happened under my watch. And of course, if ballot papers did not reach enough in those stations, whoever packaged those balloting papers, I couldn't have possibly gone and counted that they're enough. But as I said before, I will work at the pleasure of the president and the deputy president. And I'm not an elected official. If I was elected, then of course I would go back to the people to seek a mandate. But I'm working under a clause which the president and the deputy president is empowered in the Constitution to have me as an interim Secretary General, and that is their call.
You said that this was a monumental task, and you've consulted with the party leaders, and you've mentioned the president and the deputy president. Have you had a conversation with them? Are they concerned about how this process?
Yes, we have had a conversation.
What was the conversation like with the president?
I'm so experienced. I've served as a minister before, and I don't discuss the content of my discussions with the president or the deputy president. I can't.
If I can just follow up with another question. I know that you said that you're not able to give us the new timelines for when the nominations that have been cancelled today will take place, but give us best case scenarios. For example, talking about 45 counties that were supposed to go through the nomination process, how many do you believe will complete the process today? Are we looking at splitting them between Monday, Tuesday? We don't have much time on our hands. What's the best case scenario? Because clearly the challenges have already happened and we have to take that into stock.
We still have the options of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I don't want, if it was my preference, this bid should have been finished today. But because it was not finished today, I've got the option of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I don't want to announce what I prefer. I want to announce after due diligence in terms of logistics, due diligence in terms of consultation with the stakeholders, due diligence in terms of where we failed in terms of the number of printed ballot papers. So it's not a question of what I like. If it's what I like, we should have been over today.
In the morning you mentioned about 8 choppers that could provide backup materials where it is inadequate. So I'm interested to know, are the choppers working, and if so, why did you have to cancel if they are working?
Yes, the choppers are still there for backup, but you just don't get out and jump into a chopper because you want to have a chopper ride. you only jump into a chopper if you're going to solve the problem. Thank you. Yes.
You also mentioned this morning that you have a part of the backup is something apart from the backup.
Well,
What is it?
yeah, it was possible. It was possible to have a form, all right, which it was possible to have a form in which, you know, we could only have the names of the contestants instead of having their color photographs as would be required, and you could quickly print that out and send it to those places. But when you have the monumental situation that instead of having 50% of the ballot papers which were packed, only 25 or 30% reached. Now, you cannot possibly do a backup of that nature, not only in one constituency, but in the 122 constituencies that we have. Yes, good.
Mine is in regards to the cancellations. Are you admitting to failing the bulk of Kenyans who turned out to vote today? If yes, do you apologize?
Yes, it is a mistake, and I've apologized. I can apologize again.
Unreservedly.
Yes.
Moving forward, do you still have the permanent mandate in
There is consultation in terms of our logistics. We have to see what we can realistically achieve, and then we're going to put announcements. As I said, if it was my preference, I would have wanted to make all the announcements in those 3 days remaining next week. But because I need to be sure of where we are ready in terms of preparedness, I'd rather make that special announcement maybe tomorrow, maybe on Sunday. Good. Yes, sir.
Are you confirming that you were a bit of ambitious, considering that what you were saying was unprecedented?
I'd rather be ambitious than not have any ambition in life. Thank you.